Listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio AM 820 brings you Dominican Dimensions, a half hour of lively discussion about Catholic issues from a Dominican perspective, featuring the friars from St. Patrick Church in Columbus. And now, Dominican Dimensions.
Welcome to the Dominican Dimensions, a half hour of lively discussion about Catholic issues from a Dominican perspective. My name is Father Paul Marich, and I'm a friar at St. Patrick Priory in Columbus. Today I am joined in the studio by Father Stephen Alcott. Let's begin with a prayer. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Well, it's great to have you with us today. And Father Stephen, today we're going to talk about a new book that you want to share a little more about, and a great message, From Christendom to Apostolic Mission, Pastoral Strategies for an Apostolic Age, by Monsignor James Shea. And so, what is the main point of this book?
The main point of this book, which I think is very important for our current time, is to help us to think about things we don't normally think about. And that is, what are really the foundations or underpinnings of the way we see the world, and how that has changed. Monsignor Shea points out that even back in 1974, nearly 50 years ago, Bishop Fulton Sheen declared the end of Christendom. Christendom not meaning, that the church is dying, but the cultural foundations, a culture that has been based, at least in this country, on Christianity in certain ways, has undergone a seismic shift to a very different, a very non-Christian, secular type of mindset. And so the point of the book is to recognize this and to think about what that means for how we engage our world, how we see our world, and how we reach out to the world that we live in today.
So one thing that the book talks about is having this, imaginative vision of a society. So what is meant by imaginative vision?
An imaginative vision, we might say, is a certain set of assumptions, a way of looking at things. And what's key about an imaginative vision is that these assumptions are not argued about. They're usually just taken for granted because of the nature of society. Like in our own culture in the United States, our imaginative vision includes democracy. Most people wouldn't question in the United States that democracy is a good form of government. It's something that's more assumed rather than discussed. Where most people, for example, wouldn't think of whether slavery is good or bad as something that's really, something to be debated. It's not up for debate. It's just kind of assumed that that's wrong. And of course, we're not saying that it's right. It isn't.
Right.
But it is also true that in many societies, that has not been taken for granted.
Right.
Even in some places in the world today.
Right.
So yeah, that an imaginative vision is really that set of principles that undergirds many things in a culture, not only the way we act, but also what we value, how our economy functions, how our political system functions. But really, in a larger sense, it's like how you see the world.
Right.
Two people can see the same objective thing or act or event and see it in two very different ways. And so the imaginative vision, it's sort of like, you might think of it as like, it's the set of glasses by which you look at the world.
Right. There's a thing we joke about either in the church or in religious life, that's the way we've always done it,
Right, exactly.
How dangerous that could be if we just
Sure.
get stuck into, a mentality of just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean it's still going to work, in the future.
Right. And one thing Monsignor Shea points out is that our educational system, the idea of what was supposed to be a liberal education was meant that the student would understand what the principles of the culture are. You would at least recognize what they are, recognize where they come from, and be able to think about not just, what I should do today, but the why, the deeper questions. But unfortunately, in our world today, people aren't really trained to even be able to examine or even perceive what some of these principles are.
Right. So, you talk about some, elements in our own country, as Americans, things we're used to, or even just, how our economy or our society function. What about in the life of the church? Are there ways that we could see, the society of the church in this imaginative vision?
Right, and that's exactly his main focus of the book is the church presents a unique way of seeing the world, a unique pair of glasses. The church sees the world as a narrative, as created by God out of nothing. We see that the world was created to be good. We see also that because of our own ancestors, our first parents, sin entered the world, that there is evil in the world, and that Christ came and to rescue us, to offer the path to return to life, and that God wills us to follow that path. And yet we're in the midst of a battle between forces that are seen and also unseen, on our way. So that's in summary, a way of looking at the world. But until, maybe the early 20th century, even though many people didn't necessarily believe in that vision, didn't look at the world that way, at least this was sort of embedded in some sense in the way that society worked,
Right.
But the key to this book is that even in a culture that no longer has these anchors, nevertheless, the church still has a very important role to try to reach out. But we should acknowledge the important thing he points out. We acknowledge that, as Bishop Fulton Sheen said in 1974, this culture really is not primarily founded any longer on those principles. So that's going to change the way that we reach out.
Right. Well, even looking at the title of this book, From Christendom to Apostolic Mission, I mean, isn't Christendom just another word for Christianity?
That's an important question, and the answer is no. Because some people think that, for the church to shift from a Christendom mindset to an apostolic mission mindset, it means that somehow, we're going to change the content of the faith, but absolutely not. Christendom refers, at least in this book, to a culture that is undergirded by Christian principles, by Christian assumptions, by a Christian way of looking at the world. Christianity really is the truth that is given to us by Christ. That does not change. Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. It does not and will not change.
Christendom is a result of Christianity.
Right. Christendom, we might say, is a culture that is at least partially informed by, shaped by principles of the Christian faith.
Right.
But Christianity endures whether the culture is a Christendom culture or not.
Right. And, we hear this so much today when we talk about, say, Judeo-Christian principles, or, a Christian society. And, many generations, even if people were not necessarily religious, just because of a society that was founded on Christian principles that formed and shaped the way we did things, the way we thought about things, the way we acted from that. But really what we're seeing now more and more is even that, even if you could say it's the remnants of a deep Christian society, even that has been breaking apart and fading, and where we need to see then this distinction between Christianity, what we believe about Jesus Christ, that he is the Son of God who became man, he came to die for us and rose from the dead. He founded the church, but we can't be complacent or think everybody will just come along and believe that just because.
Right. And in a culture based on Christian principles, in other words, in a Christendom culture, Monsignor Shea points out, a preacher like, say, St. Vincent Ferrer, in the Middle Ages, would be preaching to people, and it's always been true throughout, even when their culture has been Christendom. A Christendom culture doesn't mean that everyone is a faithful Christian, by no means.
Right.
Not even a majority of the people were. And many of the saints pointed that out. There's always a need to preach. But someone like a St. Vincent Ferrer could preach to the people about, the coming of Christ,
Right.
at the end of time. And it would sort of awaken in people something that was already there but dormant.
Right.
They would be spurred on to suddenly come back into touch with something that they had known since they were young, but had perhaps drifted away from.
Sure.
But we're no longer in that place. There's many people, they don't even have those concepts. They never had that foundation in the first place.
Right. You are listening to the Dominican Dimensions, a half hour of lively discussion about Catholic issues from a Dominican perspective. My name is Father Paul Marich, and I'm a friar at St. Patrick Priory in Columbus. Today I'm joined in the studio by Father Stephen Alcott, and we're discussing a book, From Christendom to Apostolic Mission, by Monsignor James Shea. And we just talked about about what Christendom means and how it's distinct from Christianity. So, looking at perhaps the other aspect of the title, to Apostolic Mission, does a shift to Apostolic Mission mean a change in the structure or teaching of the Church?
No, it doesn't, and that's important as well. The Church's structure is great. The Church's teaching really is unchanging. What does change is the way we engage with the world. We might say where kind of we put our resources. And he gives an example. It's a great example. Monsignor Shea speaks about, how the Church has been in an apostolic mission stance before. And he gives the example of the day of Pentecost. Imagine if you were there on the day of Pentecost. Think about how you would think about the world.
Yeah.
You would be going out into. He writes this great little summary. He said, okay, our agenda: to bring the gospel of Christ to the world. Again, the day of Pentecost, the day this Holy Spirit has fallen. Okay, what are our resources? Bishops, 11. Priests, same number. Deacons, none. Trained theologians, none. Religious orders, none. Seminarians, none. Seminaries, none. Christian believers, a few hundred. Countries with Christians in them, 1. Church buildings, none. Schools and universities, none. Written gospels, none. Money, very little. Experience in foreign missions, none. Influential contacts in high places, next to none. Societal attitude toward us, ignorant to hostile. That's, think of that,
Right.
and realize that's what they were facing,
Right.
And in some sense, he points out that the culture that we're facing is not that,
Right.
that extreme, but it's certainly not a Christendom culture anymore.
Right.
So the stance of the Church was not, okay, we've got to put all of our resources into maintaining the things that we already have, and to continuing to continue to form succeeding generations of thousands and thousands of Christians. No, there were no there were no thousands and thousands of believers. There weren't but a few hundred. So it's more just the way of how you engage and how you direct the people and the resources that you have.
Right. We say in the Creed every week, I believe in one holy Catholic and apostolic church,
That's right.
With the four marks of the church. And we talk about that mark of apostolicity. This was something, the marks of the church was something very near and dear to my heart in my studies. And, you can always look at different aspects of these marks, that they don't just mean, or one specific thing. And with apostolicity in particular, there is a structural aspect, so that Christ gave apostles. You saw that there in your description. And we started with, there were 11 on Pentecost. There is that structure that Christ gave that we still see in the life of the church with apostolic succession, the Pope, the bishops in union with him, of course, Pope being the successor of Peter, bishops being successors of the apostles. But apostolicity is not just something structural, because at the heart of being apostolic, and also of the word mission, they actually have the same meaning. They both mean being sent.
Right, exactly.
One who is sent, and that was the thing. Those apostles on Pentecost, now alive with the Holy Spirit, were sent. So what about for all of us? This apostolic mission that just as the apostles were sent, so we are sent, into our different places in society around us. Right. So, when in an apostolic mission mode, if we want to look at ways how we're sent or where we're sent or what we're sent to do, does apostolic mission, should it be an outreach focused primarily on morality?
That's a very good question, too. Monsignor Shea points out that if you had a Christendom culture, you could rely a lot on basic common moral principles. Even people that weren't active Christians, they would still be aware of the the Ten Commandments, what marriage really is, these basic moral foundations. But he said the difficulty now is that many people, they don't even see the world that way anymore. Yeah. So his view is that we need to go even more basic in the sense of describing the whole Christian narrative. Sometimes it's called the kerygma. The basic. In other words, you have to explain not just morals, which are part of and come from the Christian narrative, but we have to transmit the Christian narrative itself, because many people just don't understand. I heard a story from a speaker recently who pointed to a place. It was a visit to a shrine, and he was there, and there's a tour guide, and was speaking about this is a place where people used to come and pray, and a little boy, pulls on his grandmother's sleeve and says, "What does pray mean?" It's like they don't even know. So in an apostolic mission mindset, morality doesn't change. It's absolutely important, but unlike a time in which you can sort of presume that the moral principles are there and they just have to be reawakened, it's more that we have to show what's the foundation on which these moral principles come from. Like if we're going to point out, this is a very good example for today. If we're to point out that abortion is wrong, we can't always presume that people believe that every human person has a dignity inherent, given by God. We can't presume that, like you have to give more of the foundational narrative of what it means to look at the world as a Christian. Right.
And what you pointed out, like on the day of Pentecost, and those first followers of Jesus Christ, not too different a situation living in the Roman Empire, and what were considered the moral norms or customs of that time, and where Christians were, for some, that saw them there were some that saw Christianity as a threat to the civic order, but for others, these people seemed odd, because why won't they, do certain practices that, say, the Romans took for granted, or, that was just kind of accepted by society? Why are they being different? Why are they treating people, their fellow brothers and sisters, with dignity and not using them? This is something that from the very beginning, it's that fruit of our belief in Jesus Christ, how we're going to act. But for a society that doesn't, that is just completely unaware, even that could seem foreign, and why our witness is so important. So what are, looking at this, the time now in which we live, what are some of the unquestioned beliefs of our secular, modern, progressive way of seeing?
Right. This is, and Monsignor Shea goes through this in his book, and there are things that many people today just sort of absorb almost by osmosis, especially because many people haven't been trained to really examine in an educated way, the very principles and foundations of our culture. They just sort of accept it, they absorb it. One of them is, we might say, it's this sense of progress as being, absolute and chronological, in the sense of if something is different today chronologically than it was, say, 10, 20 years ago, it must therefore be an improvement over what happened before. That might be true of a smartphone. The smartphone in 2023 is more advanced than one from 2013. But that doesn't necessarily hold if it comes to say, what the laws are about human life, or what the laws are about marriage. Just because something happened, more recently doesn't mean it's automatically progress. People, they'll take things in the technological world that things just keep progressing as time goes on, as knowledge increases, and they just presume that that's something, and that comes back from the Enlightenment. But obviously, that's not the Christian mindset. Another one is the denial of the fall. There's no sense in which there was at some time, of a goodness in society that has been wounded. The Christian vision incorporates the fall of our first parents. Something that was, and that there really is such a thing as sin and evil in the world. They don't see that. Another aspect of the current culture is just a very materialistic view, and this is something he points out. I think this is very insightful. Recent surveys have shown that a surprising number of Catholics don't say they believe in the true presence of Christ in the Eucharist. And he points out that this could be, at least in part, not necessarily a crisis of faith or not necessarily poor catechesis, but really just the lack of a sacramental view of the world. The Christian worldview incorporates not only what is seen but what is unseen. In a materialistic mindset, which people can pull from their schools, and from secular schools, secular media, all kinds of things, is that whatever you can observe empirically is simply all there is. And if you just think that whatever you can see, or either with your own senses or with the aid of scientific instruments, is all there is, then do you even have a category for the real presence of Christ after the priest says prayers of consecration at Mass?
And we see this with the Eucharistic revival that our bishops have called for, is because this has been a matter of great concern for our bishops. So why are so many Catholics not believing in this central aspect of our faith? And so this desire for a revival in the Eucharist that will then hopefully also spur on the final year of the Eucharistic revival is a year about sending. That after this this time of deepening our faith and devotion to the Eucharist, that the Catholic Christian will now go out to do this, to do this mission. We're sent, and that happens at every Mass. What is, in the Latin, it's ita missa est, missa, that's mission. We get that same root word there. We're sent. One is sent to go and proclaim Christ, to be, and that's been the case since the beginning of the Church, when the apostles were sent out. It's having Christ within and then going out. What are when we talk about going out and engaging the culture in spreading the gospel, what are some possible strategies for evangelization in our present situation from an apostolic mission mindset?
That's a good question too. Monsignor Shea points out a few things. One is to think about witness. When we think about the how God has always changed and converted our world, it's been not so much about programs, but it's been about people. It's been about witness. He gives the example of Mother Teresa of Calcutta, now Saint Teresa. She in a culture in India, which is not predominantly Christian, the radical witness of her life and the life of her sisters proved a real kind of stark contrast, with the way that many people were treating the poorest of the poor, and that really won a lot of people over, and she didn't need a program to do it, and also she wasn't too concerned about fitting in, with society. I mean, she was very kind to people, but she really didn't care. I mean, she went to a prayer breakfast, with a former president, and spoke quite openly about how what a sad thing it is, when a society sees it as a great freedom to abort, the youngest members of its society. So that sense of witness, of just showing, by your life, what it means to be a follower of Christ. And also he said, especially thinking about what will move the hearts of the young. One way that we pick up our imaginative vision, the set of glasses, is from the time we're young. How we see the world comes to us through our education, through things we see in the media, through people we associate with. I know there's a lot of efforts these days in trying to reach out, not only to children through having a good, solid Catholic education available, however it comes, but also to the parents of the children, because at this point we have parents that are themselves maybe one or more generations removed from any kind of truly Christian or Catholic practice. Many efforts at catechesis are also recently trying to reach out to the parents, because they're the ones who will form the domestic church, and if they aren't equipped to bring that imaginative vision of Christianity to their kids, they're certainly not going to get it anywhere else.
Right. So from Christendom to Apostolic Mission, Pastoral Strategies for an Apostolic Age from Monsignor James Shea. And who is our publisher on this book?
It's published by the University of Mary.
All right.
You can find it on Amazon. It's very easy to find. It's just under 100 pages. It's not very long to read. It's a very important work that explains a lot about what's happening in the church and how we might as a church really engage a very different kind of era.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today for the Dominican Dimensions. My name is Father Paul Marich, and I am a friar at St. Patrick Priory in Columbus. Today I've been joined in the studio by Father Stephen Alcott. Let's end with prayer invoking the intercession of our Holy Father, St. Dominic. O light of the Church, teacher of truth, rose of patience, ivory of chastity, freely you have poured forth the waters of wisdom. Preacher of grace, unite us with the blessed. Amen.
Dominican Dimensions is a production of listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio AM 820. Archives of Dominican Dimensions and all of our locally produced programs are available at stgabrielradio.com.
Veni,